I'm Peyton. And the moment my husband said, I'm getting a vasectomy, no kids ever, I swear the air in our kitchen turned to ice. I stood there with wet hands, holding a dinner plate, like it could protect me from the sentence that just ripped our future in half. Then he looked me straight in the eyes, smirked, and added, your body, like motherhood was some hobby I could pick up alone. That night, I didn't cry in front of him. I smiled, cleared the table, and started planning the cleanest exit of my life. We'd been married 6 years, together for 9, and I'd always thought we were building something. Not perfect, nothing ever is but solid. A home, a routine, a future that included tiny socks on the laundry room floor and late-night feedings, where we'd both look like exhausted zombies and still laugh anyway. Mark used to pretend he wanted that too. When we dated, he'd do this thing where he'd stop in front of a stroller in a store, put his hands in his pockets, and say, we'll be good parents, better than what we had. He said it so softly I believed he meant it. In the first years of marriage, we talked about timing like people do. Not yet, but soon. After your promotion, after we travel. It wasn't avoidance, it felt like strategy. I was 32 when everything finally lined up on paper. Stable job, savings, a house we'd bought 2 years earlier. I'd switched to a less stressful role at my marketing firm because I wanted my body and mind ready for pregnancy. I even took vitamins, the ones that smell like fish and hope. Mark's promotion came through in the spring, and our friends threw us a little party in our backyard. String lights, cheap champagne, Zach and Tessa from down the street, my friend Jules from work, and Mark's older brother, Liam, who always tried too hard to seem unbothered. Mark soaked up the attention like it was oxygen. He gave a toast about the next chapter, and I thought, finally, this is it. The next chapter is us becoming parents. That night, after everyone left, I kissed him in the hallway and said, so, should we talk about it? For real. He didn't answer right away. He walked into the kitchen, grabbed a bottle of water, and drank like he'd just run a mile. Then, he said it, like he was announcing the weather. I'm getting a vasectomy. No kids ever. At first I laughed, not because it was funny, but because my brain refused to file the words into reality. Stop, I said. Are you serious? He leaned against the counter, crossed his arms, and shrugged. Yeah, I've been thinking. I like our life. I like my freedom. I'm not ruining it with kids. I set the plate down carefully. I could hear the faucet dripping. Every drop sounded like a countdown. Mark, I said, trying to keep my voice even. We've talked about kids for years. We've talked, he corrected, and I've listened to you talk. I never promised you anything. My mouth went dry. That's not true. You literally said. He cut me off with a sharp little laugh. Don't start with the receipts, Peyton. It's my body. I'm allowed to make decisions about it. I swallowed. Of course you are. But marriage isn't just parallel lives. This affects me too. He tilted his head. How? Your body is your body. If you want kids that bad, you can do whatever you want with yours. The way he said it, like I was being dramatic, like I was a child, begging for a toy, made something inside me go perfectly still. It wasn't just the vasectomy, it was the contempt. I tried again, quieter. So you want me to what? Go get pregnant, alone. He sighed like I was exhausting him. I'm not stopping you, I'm just not participating. I stared at him, waiting for some flicker of empathy, a joke, a softening, anything that made him look like the man I thought I'd married. Instead, he picked up his phone and started scrolling. Already done with the conversation, I went upstairs, shut the bathroom door, and sat on the cold tile. My chest hurt, like I'd been holding my breath for years without realizing it. I didn't call anyone that night. I didn't scream. I didn't throw plates. I did something scarier than that. I listened. Over the next few days, Mark acted lighter, whistling while he made coffee, laughing at videos on his phone, like removing the possibility of children had removed the last obligation he felt toward me. He scheduled the consultation openly, with no shame. The clinic called once while we were eating lunch on Saturday, and he answered right in front of me. Yup, he said, Thursday at 2. Sounds good. He hung up and kept chewing. I stared at him. You're really doing this? He didn't look up. I told you I am. I hated how calm he was, like I was a storm he'd already watched pass by someone else's window. That afternoon, I drove to my mom's house and sat at her kitchen table, while she sliced apples like she could keep the world from falling apart by keeping her hands busy. My mom, Diane, listened without interrupting. When I finally stopped talking, she put the knife down gently and said, Sweetheart, that man didn't just say he doesn't want kids. He said he doesn't care what you want. I nodded. eyes burning. He said, "Your body, like I can just make a baby out of thin air." Mom's mouth tightened. That wasn't a statement about bodily autonomy. That was a statement about abandonment. I didn't realize I was shaking until she reached across the table and held my hand. On the drive home, I remembered little moments that suddenly felt like clues I'd ignored. Mark rolling his eyes when my cousin brought her toddler to Thanksgiving. Mark refusing to hold our friend Tess's baby, as if the child might stain his shirt. Mark complaining about daycare costs like we had a kid already draining him. When I got home, he was in the shower. His phone buzzed on the counter. I wasn't proud of what I did next, but I unlocked it not because I wanted to be the kind of wife because the man I lived with had just made a life-altering decision and treated me like a roommate with inconvenient emotions. My instincts were screaming that the vasectomy wasn't the whole story. The first text thread that popped up wasn't his brother. It wasn't his boss. It was a woman named Serena, with a heart emoji next to her name, but my stomach turned. "Serena, Thursday still works. I can't wait until it's done. Then we can stop being careful." Mark, yeah. Finally, I told Peyton. "She'll be upset, but she'll get over it." "Serena, you think she'll leave?" Mark, "She won't. She's all talk. Plus, the house is in my name." I stared at that last line until the words blurred. My heart pounded so hard it made my ears ring. The house was not in his name. It was in both of ours. Which meant he was lying to Serena, or he was planning something. I kept scrolling, my hands numb. There were photos, not explicit, but intimate. A selfie of Serena in the passenger seat of Mark's car, his hand on her thigh. A picture of wine glasses on a table. I recognized our favorite restaurant downtown, the one Mark always said was too expensive when I suggested date night. Then a message that made my skin go cold. "Serena, just make sure she doesn't get pregnant before then." Mark, "She won't. I've been handling it. I felt sick. A memory flashed, me asking last month if we could stop using condoms because we were trying soon, and Mark insisting, oddly firm, that we should wait until things settle. Another memory, how he'd offered to pick up my birth control refill once, then came home saying the pharmacy was out and he'd figure it out later. I suddenly didn't trust anything. When Mark came downstairs, towel around his waist, he saw my face and paused. "What's wrong with you?" I set the phone down slowly. "Who's Serena?" For the first time in days, his calm cracked. "Just a hairline fracture." But I saw it. He scoffed. "Are you going through my phone now?" "Answer the question," I said, my voice quieter than I expected. He walked closer, eyes hard. "She's nobody. A coworker." "You're being crazy." I nodded once. "A coworker you're getting a vasectomy for." His jaw tightened. "Don't twist this." I picked up the phone and read his own words back to him. "She'll be upset, but she'll get over it. She won't leave." The silence after that was loud. Then he did what Mark always did when cornered. He flipped the blame. "Violated my privacy," he snapped. "You're insane, Peyton. You're proving why I don't want kids with you. You're controlling." I laughed one sharp sound. "Controlling? You're having an affair and planning a vasectomy behind my back." "I didn't plan it behind your back," he said, voice rising. "I told you. You told me like you were announcing a dentist appointment." He stepped closer, lowering his voice in a way that used to scare me, because it felt like the quiet before a storm. "Listen, we can fix this. You can stop acting like a victim." I stared at him. "Fix this how?" His eyes flicked away for a second, like he was choosing his next manipulation carefully. "We're good together, Peyton. Don't throw everything away because of a mistake." "A mistake," I repeated, tasting the word like poison. "You called me all talk and said I wouldn't leave." He shrugged, like it didn't matter, like I didn't matter. And in that shrug, something in me finally snapped, not in a dramatic, movie scene way, but in a quiet, irreversible way. I realized Mark wasn't afraid of losing me. He was afraid of losing the life I made comfortable for him. That night, I slept in the guest room with the door locked. I didn't cry until I heard him snoring in our bedroom like nothing had happened. The next morning, I called Jules. Jules was the friend who didn't sugarcoat. When I told her everything, she went silent for a moment and then said, "Peyton, you need a lawyer." Today, I made an appointment over my lunch break with a family attorney. Jules' sister had used Naomi Carter. Naomi's office smelled like coffee and paper and seriousness. Naomi's office smelled like coffee and paper and seriousness. She didn't flinch when I said the words, vasectomy and affair, in the same sentence. She slid a notepad toward me. "Tell me what you want." I opened my mouth and realized I hadn't asked myself that yet. What did I want? Revenge, justice, peace, a baby, a do-over. My voice came out soft. I want my life back. Naomi nodded. Then we'll make choices that protect you, not punish him, protect you. I liked her immediately. She asked questions that made me think in practical terms. When my emotions wanted to drown me, finances, property, accounts, any evidence, any threats, any history of control. When I mentioned the texts and the line about him handling my pregnancy risk, Naomi's eyes sharpened. Do you still have your birth control? She asked. I stopped last month because we said we'd start trying soon. I said, but I was going to refill, get a full checkup, she said gently, and stop having sex with him. I'm not saying he did something, but you need clarity. I walked out of her office with my hands steady for the first time in a week. Home. Mark tried a different approach. He was sweet, suddenly helpful. He brought home my favorite takeout. He touched my shoulder softly and said, "We're just going through a rough patch." I looked at him and felt like I was watching an actor in a play I'd already seen. That evening, he sat across from me at the dining table and said, "Let's be adults about this." I almost laughed. He leaned forward. "I'll stop talking to Serena. I'll do counseling, but the vasectomy is happening." "That's final. Why?" I asked, genuinely curious now. "Why is it so urgent?" He hesitated. "Because I don't want kids." "Isn't that enough?" "It would be," I said, "if it didn't come with an affair and lies." His face hardened. "You're stuck on that. People mess up. People," I said slowly, "don't usually plan surgery so they can stop being careful with their mistress." His eyes flashed. "Don't say it like that." "Like what?" I asked. "Like the truth." He slammed his hand on the table. "You're not perfect either." I flinched, but I didn't shrink. That was new. Mark stared at me, breathing hard, then tried to soften again. "Look, we can get past this. You'll be fine. You're strong." There it was again, the way he talked about my pain like it was a character trait that made his cruelty easier. That night, while he slept, I did what Naomi told me to do. I gathered documents, bank statements, mortgage papers, retirement accounts. I found a credit card I didn't recognize, hidden in a drawer under old manuals. I logged into our shared bank account and saw payments that didn't match our usual spending. A hotel charge on a weekend Mark had told me he was on a work retreat. A jewelry store purchase I'd never received. A second phone line on our plan. I took screenshots, emailed them to myself, and stored copies in a folder Mark would never look at because it was labeled 2026 tax stuff. The scariest part was how clear it became. Once I looked, Mark hadn't just cheated, he'd been building a second life using our money as the foundation. A week later, he went to his vasectomy consultation. He told me casually over breakfast, "I'll be home around 4. "Okay," I said, sipping coffee with a calm I didn't feel. He looked at me suspiciously. "You're not mad?" I met his eyes and smiled. "It's your body, right?" His expression shifted, almost pleased, like he'd finally trained me. The moment he left, I drove to Naomi's office and signed the paperwork. When I held the pen, my hand shook not from fear of him, but from the grief of letting go of the life I thought we had. Naomi watched me carefully. "You're doing the right thing. Does it get easier?" I asked. "It gets clearer," she said, "and clarity feels like oxygen." When I got home that afternoon, Mark was already there, sitting on the couch like he'd been waiting to perform. "How was your day?" he asked. "Productive," I said. He patted the spot next to him. "Come here." I didn't. His smile thinned. "What's that look?" I set an envelope on the coffee table between us. "I filed for divorce." For a second, his face went blank, like his brain couldn't process the sentence. Then he laughed. "You're bluffing." I shook my head gently. "No, I'm done." His eyes darted to the envelope, then back to me. "You can't do this." "Over what?" "A conversation." "You're being dramatic." "A conversation," I echoed. "Mark, you told your mistress I wouldn't leave. You said the house was in your name. You've been using our money to fund your affair, and you dismissed my entire future with one sentence." He stood up fast, anger snapping back into place. "You went through my phone. You stole my privacy. You're the problem." I exhaled slowly. "I'm not arguing with you anymore." He paced, hands in his hair. "Where are you going to go? You can't afford this." I looked at him and felt something unexpected, not because he was hurt, but because he still thought fear was the only language I understood. I said, "and I will." His voice dropped. "Peyton, don't do this. We can fix it." I tilted my head. "You didn't want to fix it when it was my heart breaking. You wanted to fix it now because it's inconvenient." His face twisted. You think you're some hero? No, I said quietly. I think I'm someone who finally stopped begging. Over the next month, Mark cycled through every version of himself. He cried. He raged. He begged. He charmed. He threatened. One night he stood in the hallway and said, "If you leave, you'll regret it." I didn't raise my voice. I already regret staying as long as I did. Naomi moved fast. We filed for temporary orders, protected my access to accounts, and documented everything. Mark's lies about the house didn't hold up under paperwork. The credit card in his name but paid from our joint funds didn't look good either. Neither did the hotel charges, the extra phone line, the messages. When Mark realized he couldn't bully me into silence, he tried to rewrite the story to our friends. He told people I was having a breakdown and obsessed with having a baby. That part hurt more than I expected, because it made me realize how easily some people believe the version of a woman that's easiest to dismiss. But here's the thing about truth. It doesn't need volume. It needs evidence. Jules hosted a small dinner a few weeks later, just close friends. Mark wasn't invited. I wasn't trying to embarrass him, but I also refused to carry his shame like it was mine. At the table, Tessa reached for my hand and said softly, "I'm proud of you." I blinked fast. For what? Falling apart. For choosing yourself, she said. For not letting him make you small. That night, I went home to my mom's spare bedroom, my temporary landing place, and cried in a way that felt like releasing poison. Grief, yes, but also relief. A few months later, the divorce finalized with terms that felt like justice without needing cruelty. We sold the house, split the equity fairly, and I walked away with my finances protected and my future not tied to a man who treated it like a joke. Mark tried to fight, but every time he postured, Naomi calmly slid another document across the table, and he shrank a little more. The last time I saw him, we were leaving the courthouse. He looked older, like his face had finally caught up to his choices. He muttered, "So that's it." I looked at him and realized I wasn't angry anymore. "Yes," I said, "that's it." He scoffed. "Good luck finding someone who'll give you what you want." I paused, then smiled real this time. I already did. Me. On the drive home, I thought about that night in the kitchen when he said, "Your body," like it was permission to abandon me. I thought about how I'd almost believed him, how close I came to shrinking my dream just to keep my marriage. If you're listening to my story and you're in a relationship where your future is treated like an inconvenience, please hear me. Love isn't supposed to make you beg for basic respect. A partner can make choices about their body, yes, but a marriage is supposed to be a place where choices are shared with care, not delivered like ultimatums. Mark did get his vasectomy, by the way. Serena posted a photo of them together a month after I moved out, smiling like she'd won something. I didn't comment. I didn't spiral. I didn't compete, because the truth is, I wasn't losing a husband. I was losing a weight, and I finally had my hands free to build a life that belonged to me. If this story hit you in the chest, or reminded you of someone you know, take a second and tell me in the comments, what's one moment you realized you deserved better? And if you want more stories where truth and justice collide behind closed doors, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay with me, because sometimes the bravest revenge is simply walking away with your dignity intact. Simply walking away with your dignity intact.